All right, let's talk about something that can literally make or break a company: hiring. For any business out there, getting the right people on the team is, well, it's everything. And it's also incredibly difficult. I mean, one bad hire can cost you a fortune in time, money, and just morale. So, how do we actually get it right?
So let's look at a real world example. A company like Urban Outfitters. Think about it. Their whole brand, their entire vibe is built on this very specific culture of creativity and, individuality. For them, hiring isn't just about finding someone who can fold a t-shirt. No way. It's about finding someone who gets it, who is Urban Outfitters. Their success literally depends on that connection. And you know what? They're not the only one.
So, with all the fancy tools we have now, personality tests, background checks, you name it, what's the one thing we all still rely on to find these perfect people? Yep, it's the good old fashioned interview. It's still the main event. The face to face, or these days, the screen to screen, conversation is the ultimate gatekeeper for pretty much every single job out there. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. Even though we rely on it so heavily, the research tells us something pretty surprising. Most of us, well, we aren't nearly as good at interviewing as we think we are. We all like to believe we have this amazing gut feeling, this sixth sense for people. But the data shows that, more often than not, our gut is just plain wrong. And that right there, that's what we call the interviewing paradox. We're using what is often our most flawed tool to make one of the most critical decisions in business. Kind of scary when you think about it, right? But here's the good news. We can fix it. It is absolutely fixable, and that's exactly what we're going to break down right now. Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page about what an interview is actually for. It's not just a chat to see if you like someone. A selection interview is a specific procedure, and its one and only goal is to predict future job performance. That's it. Every question you ask, everything you do, should be focused on that single target.
So, how do we get better at making those predictions? Well, it all starts with a choice. You have to pick one of two very, very different paths for how you run the interview itself.
Okay, so on one path, you've got the unstructured interview. This is probably the one you're most familiar with. It's that casual, let's just have a conversation and see where it goes kind of thing. It feels really natural, right? But the problem is, it's super inconsistent and, frankly, not very reliable. Then you have the other path, the structured interview. Here, the questions are all planned out ahead of time, and crucially, every single applicant gets asked the exact same questions. It takes a little more discipline for sure, but the payoff is huge. It's way more consistent, more reliable, and just flat out better at predicting who's going to be successful. And if you're wondering what structured actually looks like in practice, here you go. This is a real interview guide from the Department of Homeland Security. You can see they have these predefined categories, scoring systems. It's all laid out. It's not a free-for-all conversation, it's a systematic evaluation. And this is so important because it ensures that whether an interview is happening in Miami or Seattle, everyone is being measured against the same yardstick. It's fair and it's standardized. All right, so we've established that having a structure is absolutely key. But what questions do you actually put inside that structure? Because the type of question you ask can make all the difference. Really, it's the difference between just guessing about the future versus learning from cold, hard facts from the past. Let's break this down because it's super important. You have situational questions, which are all about hypotheticals. They start with things like, what would you do if an angry customer yelled at you? It's basically asking for an educated guess. On the other hand, you have behavioral questions. These are about reality. They ask, tell me about a time you did deal with an angry customer. See the difference? You're not asking them to imagine something. You're asking them to tell you a story about something that actually happened. And this all comes back to one of the most powerful principles in hiring, and it's this. Past performance is the best predictor of future performance. It's as simple as that. Why would you ask someone to guess what they might do in the future when you can just find out what they have already done in the past? It just makes sense. Still not convinced? Okay, check this out. There was a call center at a bank that was dealing with insane employee turnover. They were losing more than half their people every year. So they made one simple change. They stopped asking hypothetical questions like, could you handle angry clients? And started asking behavioral ones like, tell me about a time you actually handled an angry client. And the result? In just 1 year, their turnover plummeted. They went from losing 31 people down to just 4. That is a massive, massive difference, and it shows you the real power of asking about the past. So it's clear that asking behavioral questions is the way to go. But how do you make sure you get a good, complete answer and not just some vague story? Well, you need a framework, a simple tool to guide the conversation. And the gold standard, the best one out there, is called the STAR method. So here's how it works. STAR is an acronym. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. Think of it as a little blueprint for getting a complete story from a candidate. You don't just ask a broad question, you guide them. First S, tell me about the specific situation you are in. Then T, what was the task or the goal you were trying to achieve? Then the most important part, A, what specific actions did you personally take? And finally, R, what was the tangible results of your actions? Following this structure prevents those vague, wishy-washy answers and forces the candidate to give you concrete evidence of what they can do. Okay, so we've covered a lot, right? We've gone from these unstructured, casual chats to a really methodical, evidence-based process. But it's so important to remember that this whole thing isn't just about filtering people out. It's about bringing the right people in and, just as importantly, setting them up to succeed from day one. You see, a really great interview process needs to figure out three things. First, the can-do part. Does this person have the actual skills and knowledge to do the job? That's the baseline. Second, the will-do. Do they have the motivation, the drive, the grit to actually do it well? And third, and this is a big one, organization fit. Do their values and their way of working actually align with your company's culture? A truly great process finds a way to measure all three of these.
Because at the end of the day, the interview isn't the final hurdle. It's the starting block. A thoughtful, respectful, and well-run interview is literally the very first experience a person has with your company. It sets the tone for their entire journey with you. It really is the foundation for building a team that's not just effective, but truly engaged.
So the next time you're getting ready to hire someone, you have a choice to make. Are you just going to go in and have a casual chat and hope for the best? Or are you going to go in prepared to make a calculated, evidence-based decision? The choice and the results are entirely up to you.